Welcome everybody, and thank you for taking the time to be here. And if we can have the first slide up, Gabriel, just to start us. Thank you so much. So just a couple of nuts and bolts or administrative things before we actually begin. This is our last session, as I said, and it has been so far the same Zoom link and password. I hope that you were able to join smoothly. Put yourself on mute when you're not speaking, just to make it smooth for everybody to participate. And if you would like to add the name of your country after your actual name in Zoom, then we can see the diversity in the room, and then everyone can appreciate where we're all from. So you can do that by going to the box that shows your name, going to the upper right-hand corner and clicking on those three little dots. And when you click on those three dots, it gives the option to rename yourself, and you can add the name of your country after your given name in Zoom. Keep your questions direct and concise so that we all get a chance to speak. And we're all here to listen, to learn, to share, and to grow. No matter where we're from, we all bring something to this, whether it's our passion for education, whether it's our knowledge about the issues that girls and boys uniquely face. No matter what, we're all here for a reason, and we all have something important to share. Next slide, please, Gabriel. So just a quick overview of the three parts of this short course. We are wrapping up our first module today. Our first module has been 6 workshops, and if you have missed 1 or 2 or more of the workshops, you can make them up by watching the recordings online and looking at the slides online. There'll be more information about this on the next slide and also via email. So after this, we're going to begin module 2, which is an independent period, and you'll get to create a professional action plan, a practical professional action plan that shows your commitments to prioritize some gender responsive actions in your normal work agenda for 2024. So what you normally would do, how will you begin to integrate or prioritize gender even more if you're already integrating gender? How will you integrate or prioritize gender in your normal work for next year? So we'll talk about that more in just a moment. And then module 3, the third part, is going to be a time for you to come back and share your professional practical action plan sometime in late January or else in early February. You can present your plans for feedback. Gabriel, next slide, please. And if you'd like to earn a certificate of participation, you do have to show that you have attended all 3 of those modules and also all 6 of these workshop sessions. So if you have missed any of them, it's not too late. You can watch the Zoom recording of the session. They're all uploaded to YouTube. You can also look at the PowerPoint slides, which we share with you after each session. You can complete any of the work that was assigned. And right now, the most important assignment so far in these workshops has been to share an example of a gender responsive program from your country using that worksheet that we have shared and made available to you that we'll put in the chat box here in a moment. So that has been the most important assignment so far. And if you want a certificate, you do have to submit the worksheet on a program, any program from your country that is working to bridge the learning gap between girls and boys or respond uniquely to the learning issues for girls or for boys, a gender responsive program. You can also email us a written summary of your responses to the questions that are asked by the facilitators in the PowerPoint and in the recording. So there are always some discussion questions. We'd like for you to respond to those with a shortened written summary. These are if you are making up the missed sessions. And if you want a certificate, you do have to make up the sessions. And you can do so on your own time. You can do this before January 10th, before your course task is due. So it's meant to give you a little bit of flexibility, but we do want you to listen to all the sessions if you're trying to earn the certificate. It's for your own benefit. Next slide, please, Gabriel. Okay, I'm going to share some important links with you. The first link is the instructions about how to make up the missed sessions. The second link is the practical application task. This is your professional action plan. It's not very long, but it is going to be analytical. You have to think through which action or actions you're going to be taking in 2024 that will integrate or prioritize gender in your own work. Then we have a WhatsApp community of practice. We really want you to consider joining this group because even though it's on WhatsApp, it's a great way to connect people together for shared learning. It's not going to be any like maybe other WhatsApp groups where maybe there's a spam or lots of unrelated content. It's monitored by us, and it's really used for updates and for connecting between people. And you can share information from your context. You can share how it's going with your assignments. So it's like a focused WhatsApp group. Then we have our resource pack. This is a pack with all the materials from these sessions and also other learning resources like definitions, reports, case studies, policy briefs. There's a lot of things here, and we would like you to draw on them, to look back at them when you make your professional practical action plan. So using at least one or two of those resources to inform your action plan. And then finally, we have a parking lot. This is a place where you can post ongoing questions that haven't been answered in the sessions. And we're doing our best to answer those questions there. Gabriel, if you let me share my screen for a moment, I'm going to show them what it looks like, the professional action plan. Just for 1 minute, I want to show in case someone hasn't seen it yet. So, colleagues, if you want to earn a certificate for this course, you do have to put together a short action plan that will be due on January 24th. January 10th of next year. So you have a little time to do it, exactly a month and 3 days. This is going to be required for completion. So the action plan is here, and I will share the link with you again. The action plan is meant to be personal for you, and it's supposed to be practical and implementable. So you can put down your information here, your name and your country, and etc., and identify a few achievable actions that you can complete in your own personal area of immediate responsibility in your work. So sometimes we've done this before in the past, and sometimes people write down some very large, abstract, and good ideas, but they're not implementable right away. They're desires that go way beyond the scope of the individual person. They're like to implement a policy, or to write a policy, or conduct a curriculum review, which are all good actions, but they require a lot of steps. So if you want to begin with something that's practical and immediate, think about what you can do in the next couple of months, what you personally can do to use the learning that you've begun in this short course, because we know that you haven't learned everything yet. If you know there's a particular area that you want to learn more about, that's fine. You can add that here to these boxes. So which action will you take? When will you take it? Number 2, how does it relate to your regular work that you're doing already? It's not meant to be extra, but how does it relate to your immediate work? What specific gender equity issue are you addressing? What are the tools or the resources you will use to complete this action, and then go back to the resource pack? So what kind of knowledge do you need to complete your action? What kind of stakeholders do you need to consult? Are you going to be talking to your principal secretary? Are you talking with your minister? Are you talking with maybe some teachers that you're interviewing? So what kind of stakeholders are you going to be talking to complete your action? What challenges might you face when you complete this action? How can you address these challenges? And then you have to present this to us back in January of next year. We'll have a workshop for you to present this. And then there will be a reflection for you to do after you implement your action. That can be anytime next year, maybe in March or in April or afterwards. You can reflect on how this has gone for you, this action. You can do one action, you can do 2, you can do a couple. It all depends on how much of this work you're already engaged in and how much you can actually achieve and implement. You don't have to put down 10 different actions. It's more achievable if you put down 1 or 2 good actions and then actually complete those. A few examples might be that you can hold a meeting with your superiors, maybe about something that you've learned that you think they should know about and that they should support you in doing. You can organize a specific training on a topic that you learned more about or that you have already some knowledge on, but then learned about maybe through this course in a different way. So you can organize a training session maybe. You can conduct interviews with practitioners who are implementing a program in your country that you want to know more about, maybe using the worksheet that you've shared with us. There's a lot of things you can do here. These are just a couple of examples, but the idea is that it should be something that you can actually do and not something that you think that the whole country should do or that the ministry in general should implement sometime in the future. These are not general policy recommendations. Again, this is not a general policy recommendation. It's your own action that you can take because it's a community of practice. Gabriel, that's it from my side. You could perhaps share the slides again. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. Colleagues, without any further ado, I'd like to call on my colleague, Jerusalem Asmarau, Dr. Jerusalem Asmarau, to give some opening remarks. So I guess we don't need the slides at the moment, Gabriel. Sorry about that. I want to say that Dr. Jerusalem Asmarau is a program officer at ICPA, UNESCO ICPA, where she has been coordinating peace education and education on gender equity in across African countries, across the continent. She supports work on girls' education and teacher professional development, among other projects. And she's worked for several non-governmental organizations, including Save the Children International, Education Cluster Coordinator. And she holds a PhD in International and Comparative Education. So Dr. Muslim, if you'd like to welcome the participants, over to you.
Thank you, Marianne, for inviting me to say a few words as a team member of this initiative under the KICS project. And good afternoon, colleagues. It's really a pleasure to have Justin Sass, our colleague from the UNESCO headquarters, and Dr. Effie as a speaker, and also to see partners from different countries, including delegates from the Ministry of Education. And it's my pleasure to greet you all and all protocols observed. As you know, gender is a priority for UNESCO, and the KICS project advocates for this knowledge sharing under this umbrella. And these learning sessions are also specifically designed for countries to share their experiences on how we can apply the principle of gender equality to influence gender responsive and gender transformative education in Africa. And during the previous 5 sessions, which I missed some of it, but Marianne, I was also following the recordings, and I can say that we have discussed so many issues, including understanding the concepts and the basic principles of gender equality, the legal and the policy grounds, the social, cultural, and other structural factors that really affect the girls and women education, including voice, of course, and the challenge, the strategies, and the workable practices at different level of interventions, which were really interesting to listen. And it will be also interesting, I think, to see today how today's discussion will zoom in on identifying strategies, stakeholders, and alliances to prioritize gender equality in education policy making. And as I said from the previous sessions, it also indicated that countries have undertaken various measures to enhance gender equality in all spheres of within the framework of these international legal instruments. However, these frameworks alone cannot be binding principles or a law. So countries also need to have a policy that serves as a guideline in the day-to-day implementation. And as we also learned and see from our practice, those countries who have these frameworks as a law of the land or as a policy have really progressed so far when it comes to gender equity. And with that in mind, maybe I would like to say a few words on why we prioritize gender policy making. Of course, Justin and other colleagues from Nigeria will adapt from the practice, but why we really need to prioritize gender policy making in a transformative way in the education sector at the country level. So maybe I would like to emphasize on 3-4 points on why it's important. And the first thing that why we need really to identify stakeholders and engage them on the policy making is it will help us to address the interrelated problems in country-specific and coordinated manner. As we all know and see, the issues of gender and its challenges are very complex, and it requires to be addressed from the multiple dimensions and from the holistic perspectives that also engage the various partners and social cultural analysis. Therefore, these policies will help us to identify and analyze commitment areas for different stakeholders, groups, including the government, donors, multilateral organizations or civil societies, and also the beneficiaries themselves, both male and female, and also the academic institutions. And it also addresses well the issues of marginalized group of people, mainly those who are under refugee or crisis context. So this is one of the reasons that we need to prioritize policy making. Then the second reason is it will also help us to analyze how social values can be determined and addressed at the country level, as these social values, especially the social cultural barriers and challenges, varies from countries to countries. And it was interesting to listen the fifth session how on the area of early marriage and how livelihood also influences girls for early marriage. But in the meantime, livelihood also influences boys for the child labor. So this is something that we can see and address in an integrated manner if we have this policy on the gender mainstreamed policies. And the other can be also through policies, we can have strategies, or we can also identify workable alternatives, and that will help us to address the issues at the optimal level. So maybe the issue can be an early marriage, as I said, but what are the conducive environments or what conducive supporting mechanisms are there in the ground can be well assessed if we prioritize on the policy making. Is there any family law or is there any social law or legal bindings that can protect girls from the early marriage and so on? This will come when we really have a comprehensive policy making processes at the ground. And the policy can also, it will give us a kind of ownership. So it signifies a commitment. So it will not be simply a proposal or a stated rules. It will enhance the commitment among stakeholders, and it can give it as a legislation or a statute that makes it an approval for the legal instruments. So governments, we can hold governments, including the Ministry of Education and other relevant stakeholders accountable when it comes to the issue of gender equality. So I think when we designed this session also, this is why we wanted to discuss the aspect of identification and of the relevant stakeholders and stakeholders analysis, and also on analyzing the implementing strategies as well as collaboration. And I hope we will have a very fruitful discussion based on countries' experience also. And I would like also to thank all the participants, especially those who have been with us for the last 6 sessions. And I hope it was a very good learning session for all of us. For me, myself, it was a very learning session. And thank you very much, Marianne. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jerusalem. It's always so wonderful to hear you speak about the work that you engage in. Thank you for that. And I hope that participants are able to continue their learning in this space, because there's a lot of things that we're doing at UNESCO ICPA that relate to gender equity. And we hope that there's chances for everyone to continue, maybe add to some of the work that we're doing. We'd love to partner with you if you have something promising to share. Let me just introduce our next course facilitator. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you for the slides. So Ms. Mercy Mupavayenda is going to be taking us through the learning today. So over to you, Mercy, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and thank you so much, Dr. Jerusalem. We could actually just stop here and start discussing your opening remarks because they were quite comprehensive. They touched on a lot on today's topic, as also just in general. And I really like the fact that you are drumming in why it's important to engage different stakeholders, because of the coordinated efforts required from multiple dimensions, and which also helps us to get a holistic approach. So thank you very, very much. And we hope that you still be around after I introduce, I recap last Tuesday's session and introduce today's one, and after our second speaker, so that our participants may also be able to engage with you. Thank you very much. We can move to the next slide. Yes. So last week was session 5, and we looked at the cost versus benefit of education programs, especially education programs that are aimed at educating girls. But we were also looking really at the cost of not educating girls. As you still remember, we had Dr. Quinton with us, and he wrote that article that we assigned to you as one of the readings. So we can move to the next slide, Solong. Yes. So last week we looked at that, and our learning outcomes were we were hoping that our participants would start building an understanding of the cost versus benefit of not educating girls. And as we've been saying, right, from session 1, right, in countries like Lesotho, it's the boys are in the situation that the girls are in the rest of Sub-Saharan Africa. So even if we keep saying girls, but we keep in mind that in other countries, there may be a slight difference. So we are, because we are also looking at equity, we really are looking for both boys and girls. So beyond the cost, beyond the individual human rights violations, to looking more at the socio-economic and political cultural effects at a global scale. Yes, we can go to the next slide. So some of the comments that we got, as our participants were chatting in the chat box, and also just speaking with our different guest speakers and in open forums amongst each other. Some of the comments we got were, among other social factors that affect girls' education is, number 1, boy preference by majority of the parents. Number 2, many parents look at girls' education as an expensive investment and not very profitable for them. And then among other challenges, someone else said, among other challenges facing girls' education in Uganda is the FGM, which is the female genital mutilation, if I'm getting that correctly, and poor school facilities. The issue of poor school facilities has been coming up, and the issue of poverty is one very huge structural barrier that we've been dealing with right from session 1. Someone else said, I like the issue of buying sanitary towels for girls and reabsorbing girls back into schools after pregnancy, because in Lesotho, the Ministry of Gender has been mainly dealing with gender-based violence. So this is a reminder as well that schools are not zones that are free from gender-based violence, or even just from violence in general. And then someone else said, female leaders as exhibited in our country will enhance girls' retention and effectiveness at school. Working on female leadership helps a lot. And if I recall, Mrs. Jata, one of our speakers from the Gambia last week, one of the things that I do remember her saying was that even though they are facing a lot of challenges, they've also made a lot of strides towards putting policies in place. And what I liked the most about what she said, was that she said, I remember her saying, we have very strong women and they are standing up to make sure that, these policies are put in place. And she even mentioned that the current Minister of Basic, I think, Education was a former director of the gender unit in the education sector. Yes. So I would like to remind our participants to keep writing in the chat boxes. As you can see, even the things that you put in the chat box, they end up in our slides, they end up, some of them end up in our resource packs, everything that you write, even when you don't get an opportunity to speak online live, you will see that we try to integrate everything that you tell us. So I just thought that it may be important to also mention that Dr. Quinton asked if anyone would be interested in submitting an abstract and writing articles. There isn't a lot of time, but he did extend the invitation for anyone who's been writing on gender responsiveness or anything to do with the topics we've been dealing with in the education sector in different countries. So I won't dwell on this a lot. You will see it in the resource pack when you go through today's slides at the end of the day. At the moment, I would like, before I even introduce today's topic, if it's okay, I would like to call on one or two of our participants to tell us what they took away from last week. If your comments didn't make it onto the slides and you feel that you have something in particular that you'd like to point out that you took away from session 5, please feel free to put up your hand and share. And if you are not interested in speaking live, you can also still put it in the chat box, but let me know if I should make room for you to speak before I introduce today's topic. Thank you. We can move to the next slide. Thank you. Is anyone interested in talking about, in giving any comment, observation, or learning outcome that they got away from session 5? Going once, going twice? Okay. So one of the things that we also talked about, in fact, what was our practical learnings as part of our practical learning activity last week is that we spoke about the key findings. Due to time, I'm not going to go into these key findings now, but if you do recall, last week I opened the floor for us to discuss the key findings that were in the document, in the Woodon et al. Document that we were dealing with. We're looking at the key findings as well of the cost of not educating girls, as well as the potential economic costs associated with these domains. So we won't be getting into this now, but if anyone still has questions, please feel free to still post your questions in the space that Marianne shared with you earlier, in the link to the standing questions, where we'll make time to answer the questions in full and also to link you to further readings. Thank you. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes. So welcome to session 6 and also the last one of our sessions for module 1. So session 6 is about identifying strategies, stakeholders, and alliances to prioritize gender equity in education, in our own environments, right? In our own policy-making contexts. Yes. And then moving on to our learning outcomes. So for today, our hope is that participants will begin to map and identify relevant stakeholders in the education sector and understand the roles and interests of various stakeholders in either supporting, promoting, or in some cases even hindering gender equity. So it would be good if we can, we will have an opportunity to discuss later after our second speaker has also presented us with their own experiences and learnings. But the idea is that we will open a forum where we will all discuss and hopefully be able to identify, as I said earlier, Dr. Jerusalem already started going into, not only the importance of policies, but also the importance of various stakeholders. So at this point, I want to hand over. In fact, let me see what the next slide says before I hand over. So our key terms, right? We are looking at strategies, we are looking at stakeholders, we are looking at alliances, relationships, and in the long term, we are hoping that these efforts that we've put together are not just disjointed, but it becomes a form of movement building if, as participants and different organizations like UNESCO and other organizations, UNICEF and various ministries of education, if we are all able to build lasting relationships, we hope that we can start a movement of interested stakeholders who really feel that they have a stake in creating an equal world where boys and girls, men and women can all participate equally. Thank you. Next slide. Yes. So our key driving questions today that we are hoping will be answered by the various presentations that you are going to hear and to participate in today are: what are effective strategies used what effective strategies, right, are used to map stakeholders? So you can speak from your own experience, you can speak from what you've seen happen in other countries, and we'll also hear what our guest speakers have to say. How can policy actors approach partnership building alliances, and also forming South-to-South exchange of evidence of the different programs? And also lastly, how can partners take advantage of this learning platform to turn alliances into in-country and South-to-South, and a South-to-South movement that prioritizes education in Sub-Saharan Africa? So I will stop here for now, and I'll hand over back to my colleague Marianne to introduce our next speaker.
Mercy, thank you so much for that background, and thank you so much for just all the promise that today holds and even future sessions hold. Truly, there's so much that we can learn, and I think that just to emphasize that we're not going to be finishing these topics today, or all these terms, or all these ideas, but we're hoping to continue them in January next year with a community of practice. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. So let me actually try to, okay. So Ms. Justine Sass is the chief of the section of Education for Inclusion and Gender Equality at UNESCO. Justine has over 25 years experience championing gender equality, sexual and reproductive health, education, and youth empowerment. She is presently the chief of the section of Education for Inclusion and Gender Equality at UNESCO, where she leads global strategy, evidence generation, partnerships, and technical assistance for policy and programming on these themes. We're so happy to have her here. Over to you, Justine.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today. I have been, along with some of my colleagues, following the other sessions that you've held over the course of the last few weeks, and it's a real pleasure to have a chance to present some of the work that we're also supporting today. So I'm going to be speaking about a new tool that we have developed that's designed to really collectively hold governments and other education actors to account for commitments on gender equality in and through education. As you can see on the slide, it's called the Global Accountability Dashboard. And we're presenting this now because in the spirit of today's session on strategic alliances, it's really the outcome of a lot of collaborative work from many different stakeholders, to use a few of the themes that you've just shared. And we launched it just last month in November at UNESCO's General Conference. So while I'm from UNESCO, I will be speaking on behalf of a very wide range of partners, including some governments from Sub-Saharan Africa. You can also see on the slide the logos of the Population Council and UNICEF, which are also partners in this work, as are many other organizations. The dashboard is really a living tool, and today's conversation is to really see with all of you joining today's meeting how you and your government can contribute to its development and to its use as part of movement building, another theme that was also shared. Gabriel, if you could go to the next slide, please. So to start off, let me give you some background. Most of you, I hope, are familiar with the Transforming Education Summit, or the TESS, which was convened by the UN Secretary General last year. All of your countries were part of it and made national statements of commitment. And as part of the process leading up to the summit, there was a thematic action track on inclusive, equitable, safe, and healthy schools, which developed the discussion paper that you can see on one side of the screen. It was done through a very highly consultative process, bringing together governments, youth representatives, civil society organizations, activists, and other organizations. It was launched at the Transforming Education Summit, along with what you see on the other side of the screen. And you can see the link on the bottom of the screen. And I believe one of my colleagues is putting it into the chat. The call to action. And so the call to action on advancing gender equality and girls and women's empowerment in and through education really builds on the discussions of the action track and other commitments that have been made, like the Freetown Manifesto on Gender Transformative Education, the G7, G20 declarations and communiques, and the Gender Equality Forum. If you can go to the next slide, you can see what are some of the key elements of the call to action. Some of these have already been mentioned as being really key to transformative work to advance gender equality. So what you can see here is basically 6 broad commitment areas or actions that we think are key as part of the transforming education process for the world that we live in today. This is first putting gender equality really at the heart of education plans, budgets, policies, and data systems. This has also been discussed earlier. Really ensuring gender parity and non-discrimination through different actions and having this intentional focus. Removing gender bias and stereotypes from curricula, content, and materials and pedagogies. Ensuring gender transformative learning spaces. Supporting collaboration between educational actors, and investing in focused interventions that really target the most marginalized learners. And so what we're doing as part of the platform is trying to track action that is being taken along these 6 areas. If you go to the next slide, you can see how. So what we've done at the Transforming Education Summit is we launched what's called a global platform for gender equality in and through education. It's not a website, it's a multi-stakeholder partnership, which is really including government representatives, as you can see, leaders, partners, champions, and really a broad array of stakeholders and actors. It's co-led by UNESCO and UNICEF. And what we're really trying to do is drive transformative leadership, accountability, innovation, data, and financing to advance gender equality and girls and women's empowerment in and through education. The idea is really to equip education stakeholders with data and evidence, to encourage them to take proactive and transformative measures, and to share learning on high impact solutions. And if you go on the next slide, you can see the three main questions that we're asking as part of the platform. So we've boiled these into three main questions. I won't go through them in detail. You'll see them on the slide and you can see them afterwards also as shared. But the first is to see, are we on track? What are the gaps? And finally, are our interventions informed by evidence? So are we really taking action based on what works? And promoting innovations and really taking transformative steps towards gender equality in and through education. So how are we doing that? We have on the next slide, we've launched a dashboard, which is a website. It is a platform, and it's basically looking at having a kind of one-stop shop for online resources on gender equality in and through education. That includes gender analysis of SDG 4 indicators and other important data. One second, sorry. It includes country profiles with policy reviews, research, programs, and investments. It looks at key transformative actions, as I mentioned, taken against these 6 areas. And it provides an evidence hub of initiatives and good practice. And as you can see, we think the dashboard will have a really wide use, including governments, organizations, other actors who made commitments around the Transforming Education Summit, other individuals and organizations interested in gender transformative education, those that want to know what good practice looks like, researchers, and others. And if you can go to the next slide, please, Gabriel. So the idea is basically to have 3 main types of data and evidence that's included. So first, data on country progress against the key areas of the call to action. And we've done this using, 10 key indicators, along with more broad SDG 4 indicators, which we are tracking as part of the SDG 4 process anyway. The second is really looking at gender transformative education programs, initiatives, policies, and legislation. And we already have documents from over 700 organizations, 950 programs included. And third is, again, looking at resources that partners from the education and gender equality community have developed. And I'm going to go into each of these in a bit more detail as I take you through the dashboard. So on the next slide, you can see the landing page and the link to the dashboard. This is what it looks like. You can see the link as well on how to access it. If you go to the next page, and I'm going to go pretty quickly, but I hope you'll have a chance to explore it on your own. You can see on this page some of the images that we've extracted from the dashboard to build on, and what we've done through it is we didn't want to duplicate work that's already happening, so it builds on a platform that the education and gender community was already using. It's called Evidence for Gender and Education Resource, or EAGER. It's a Population Council website. In the spirit of the tests, all countries are covered regardless of their income level. And I'm going to show you on the next few slides what else you can see. I know the slide is very small, but you can see in detail. So the first thing that we have on it is country profiles. This includes both high, low, and middle income countries. Each country page also includes a link to the National Statement of Commitment made during the Transforming Education Summit. Over 140 countries made these, so we have them on 140 of the country pages. You can also see what the tracking looks like against each of the indicators. This includes key barriers to access to quality education, such as early marriage and gender-based violence. All of the data that are included for these indicators come from reliable and comparative data sources, such as the UNESCO Institute for Statistics, the ILO, and these obviously come from your own sources of data, the national statistics offices and other comparative sources. On the next slide, you can just see one example, which we've just extracted for Kenya. So you can see what this would look like. You can also see your own country pages here on the website as well, if you go onto the resource. One other area that we have on the dashboard on the next slide is, as I've already mentioned, we feature examples of gender transformative work by partner organizations. Here you can see the Forum for African Women Educationalists, FAWE, which includes hyperlinks to relevant sources of information. These are also linked to the SDG4 Knowledge Hub, which is a main kind of exchange platform for the Transforming Education Summit. And what we really want to do as we move forward is include highlights, stories of transformative action being taken by countries on different areas of the call to action. On the next page, just a few highlights on what's missing and what we would love to hear from you in terms of your own reactions. First, we need inputs on 3 country indicators for which we haven't been able to identify reliable sources of cross-country comparative data. These are 1, the processes underway to review and update curricula and learning resources. For countries that have done this and that have included a strong gender analysis to this, we would love to profile you. Countries that are taking training, leading on training on gender responsive pedagogies for teachers, and collaboration between different actors, including with young people. And second, and this is really also where we need your help, is to feed into the dashboard examples of gender transformative initiatives that have been developed since the Transforming Education Summit. And why do we want this? So that other countries can learn from the work that you're doing and be inspired by these actions. On the last slide, you can see just how you can help us do this, how you can be involved. There's a link here where you can submit directly to the dashboard. There's also a survey that's been distributed through the SDG4 network to your countries through the high-level steering committee. This is broad, so we'd be happy to also go into more details on the gender work with either you or your gender focal points if you're not a gender focal point. We're also trying to leverage ways to look through regional monitoring mechanisms, including gender focal point networks, like those supported by the African Union and other mechanisms. And then we're also happy to just have conversations with you bilaterally. We've done this with a number of countries. For example, Namibia is a champion country for the platform, and we've been having some bilateral conversations with them to feed into the dashboard. What do we need? We need your good practices. We need your transformative actions, initiatives, programs, policies, legislations, anything that you've done since the Transforming Education Summit. We look to you as sources of inspiration for other countries. Finally, on the last slide, you can see my contact information if you'd like to reach out directly. And thanks again for the invitation to speak with you today.
Thank you so much, Justine. Thank you so much for your comprehensive input there and the slides. I liked also especially the fact that you mentioned the indicators. We have some of our participants who've really been trying to understand from at country level. They've been asking, what does an indicator look like? So I'm hoping that some of them who've been asking are with us today, and they can ask follow-up questions if they still have them. But thank you so much, even for the different resources that you've also shared with us. If you are going to, I'm sure you are going to be around for a few more minutes just to take questions from our participants. If they have any, I'm sure they should have some. Yes.
I'll stay through the event, definitely. Very keen.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes. I just want to check with my colleague Marianne. Is Dr. Ife online and ready to speak? Should I hand over?
I see that she's online. She was having some trouble with her. I think the slides were not moving for her. I had recommended that she try to rejoin. Dr. Effie, are you with us?
Yes, please. I'm around, Marianne.
Okay, wonderful. Yes, Mercy, would you like to introduce her, or would you like me to? Okay, maybe I will then.
Please carry on.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear. Okay, so everyone, I want to warmly welcome our next presenter, Dr. Effie Anam. She's going to be going through her presentation now about what Nigeria is doing. Dr. Effie Anam is the Assistant Director of the Gender Education Branch of the Federal Ministry of Education in Nigeria. She holds a doctorate degree in community development and is a passionate gender advocate who works for the benefit of the girl child and other vulnerable groups in Nigeria. So Dr. Effie Anam, we are so happy to have you here. And these types of country experiences are the bulk, the backbone of this community of practice. So we're going to listen keenly to what you say and learn from you. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone on this platform. I am delighted to be in your midst. Actually, I feel humbled to be in the midst of gender experts. It has always been my desire to work with people like those on this group and acquire some knowledge from them. I am new in gender, but I am passionate about gender. Now back to Nigeria overall, to integrate gender issues into education policy making. I want to tell us that Nigeria has not national policy on education in gender. Sorry, the national policy on education itself speaks to equity and equality in education. I want to inform us here that the Nigeria in 2019 that prompted us to reconsider our policy on gender in education. Before now, what we had was a policy on gender in basic workshop we had, sponsored by ONGAY and UNICEF. We had a change of heart. Two of us that attended that workshop sat together and said there was need for us to review the national policy because it actually had a lot of gaps in it. That aside, the policy has been reviewed and we now have a national policy on gender. In education, this covers all levels of education in Nigeria. That was done in 2021 with the funding support of UNICEF lines to facilitate the re-entry of pregnant and married adolescent girls into school. In addition to that, we are also developing a strategy for enrollment, retention, and completion of adolescents in schools, adolescent girls specifically, both boys and girls. I think apart from that, I want us to move on to the next slide, please. I want to look at what we consider to be gender responsive education sector plan. The gender education sector plan is that plan, that education plan that has equality and equity as an integral part of its education system. With the world going inclusive, we find out that a lot of times persons with disabilities, the vulnerable group, are ignored. So with this gender responsive education plan, it will be an all-inclusive thing. Everybody will be carried along. It also implies providing resources, oversight, and accountability. Accountability is what has been lacking to some extent. But with this gender responsive education planning, accountability becomes paramount. Now I want to move on to what are the education project. We have had phases 1 to 3, but basically phase 3 has been wonderful. We have had cash transfers, conditional and unconditional cash transfers. The conditional cash transfers are those ones that we do to support especially teachers, female teachers, to be able to go to the rural areas to impart knowledge and to encourage the girls to come back to school. The original cash transfers are those transfers we do for girls, parents, encourage their girls
Hello,
to
Dr.
support
Effie?
them.
Hello, we're not catching you clearly. I'm so sorry, but maybe you
We
could
move on
repeat the last.
groups. Nigeria has been able to establish what we call HILWA, high-level women advocates, in more than 12 states. Yes, please.
I'm so sorry to interrupt,
you
Dr.
hear?
Effie. I was just saying that we're having some trouble hearing. The connection seems to be getting weak from your side. If there's any way for you to maybe move closer to your device, maybe like if you have like a modem or the internet source in your room. I know that it's a challenge, so even if you can't improve your connectivity, that's okay. We've shared your slides. We'll do our best to follow, but we're having a little trouble hearing you. Sorry about this.
Can you hear me now?
We're catching some of what you're saying, but some words are being lost. It seems to like it got worse in the last 1 minute. But maybe you can continue and we'll do our best to follow. I've shared your slides with everyone.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I think it's a bit clearer.
The voice is not clear,
try.
please.
My voice is not clear. That means you can't hear me.
The voice is staggering.
It's staggering.
Yes.
But you can hear me now.
Off, yes.
Okay.
Dr. Riba is a network issue. So we already complained that it is cutting. So it's a network problem. Not your voice, but it's a network problem.
Yes, you can continue, Dr. Effie. We'll do our best. You can continue.
Okay. Now I want us to look at the high-level women advocates. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
The HILWA, the high-level women advocates, those are like role models. We look for women in society, in the states, within the local governments, who have achieved some success in their lives, in their endeavors. Maybe commissioners of education, maybe women who have achieved in their businesses, and use them as role models. More than that, we encourage these women to adopt children within their neighborhood to mentor them. Can you hear me, please? Can I continue? Dr. Effie's connection is not strong.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, then apart from that, we also, among the interventions we did enrollment drives. Under enrollment drives, we had what we call identification and enrollment of girls in rural communities. How did we do this? We went to the rural communities, we consulted with the rural chiefs, the rural leaders, the community leaders, and we got them to
identify those families that have girl children that are not going to school. So the federal government bought uniforms for them, bought school bags for them, bought exercise books for them, bought shoes and socks, everything that they needed to remain in school, we got them and we enrolled these children in school. That was done in about 8 states. Then we did the school feeding program. The school feeding program is another initiative that brought out a lot of people from their homes. Some of the children who had dropped out of school as a result of poverty were able to come back to school. Apart from that, we now have the school scholarship and bursaries that were provided. Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear
my.
me? Oh my God.
Yes, carry on, Dr. F.
Hello, Dr. Effie? Hello, Dr. Effie, can you hear us? Can you continue?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we hear you. You can
Hello?
continue.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you. Hello?
Yes, there's a bit of a lag. You can do your best. Just try your best.
Hello?
Yes, there's a bit of a lag. Just try your best.
Hello, I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay, Dr. Effie, we see that you're connected from 2 devices. It seems like maybe one of the devices
Hello, I don't
was
know if
better
you
than
can
the.
hear me.
Okay. Okay, there's a big lag between the connection, I think. It wasn't so bad before, but it might be getting worse. Dr. Effie, if you can hear me, could you continue your presentation and maybe just try to finish in about 3 minutes? Because we've lost some time because of the technology. Is that okay with you? And we've shared your slides so people can follow along on their own time. Dr. Effie,
Yes, please. Of the schemes the ministry invested on, get teachers within the local community, female teachers within the local community to get involved with teaching. Then there is the ongoing inclusive education system. Currently, the ministry is retooling teachers to enable them cope with inclusive education, teaching them the skills of managing learners with special needs. And in addition to that, the curriculum has been reviewed to ensure that the girls are not reflected in bad light. The textbooks that were not that reflected boys in positive professions and all that has been reviewed and is still ongoing. We also have the Agile project. The Agile project is a collaboration between Federal Ministry of Education and the World Bank. Agile means Adolescent Girls Initiative for Learning and Empowerment. So with Agile Project, FME and the World Bank has been able to put the girls in the right perspective, empower girls, impart skills on this to the girls. In addition to that, there are other programs under GEP 3. For instance, you have the Girls for Girls, girls mentoring other girls. You have the He for She, those are the male advocates and then the male champions. You have the Mothers Association established in schools to make sure that within a particular community, you have a lot of mothers putting their eyes down and ensuring that girls are returned to schools. There is the School-Based Management Committee, and then there is one aspect that really worked out for us in Nigeria here is the engagement of traditional and religious leaders. And I think there's still a lot we need to do. We can explore a lot more using this strategy, traditional and religious leaders. Then our next steps for now is to sensitize the states about the policies. It is one thing to develop policies. It's another thing to disseminate the policies and to get the states buy-in. So we also want to advocate for states buy-in and then domestication of the policies. Then monitoring and evaluation, monitor and evaluate the level of implementation by states. We just don't want to pass policies down and then we're not monitoring whatever is happening. So these are the next steps for us in Nigeria. For now, we're still working majorly with UNICEF. I want to appreciate UNICEF for their efforts. Looking at the reentry guidelines, UNESCO is a co-sponsor of developing that guideline. So our partners have done perfectly well with us, and we are also pushing along them. Thank you very much. I think that is the bit I can go. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Effie. I know we were having a number of problems, like a lot of problems with the connectivity there, but because of the slides, I think we were able to follow your talk from start to finish. So now I would like to open the floor to our participants to ask questions and share their observations based on the two presentations that we've had so far. So please feel free to put your hands up and speak to our presenters who have done quite a sterling job of going through sharing interventions, sharing resources as well with us. To start off, maybe I could start off and ask a question to Dr. Effie, if she can hear me. I know that at the beginning of—
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, at the beginning of your presentation, you spoke about the fact that you had to work to institute a gender responsive policy. I'm not sure whether it's a gender responsive or just gender policy at if I'm not mistaken, at federal level in Nigeria. So taking into context today's topic on trying to identify stakeholders, would you be able to speak to us and our participants on how you went about identifying who was important and who participated in you instituting the policy at country level? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since we now had opened up the policy to include tertiary education, so we brought in stakeholders from civil society, We brought in stakeholders from the university, the National Universities Commission, representing the tertiary. We brought in stakeholders from National Board for Technical Education. We brought in the local government, education chairman. We brought in UBEC and the state suburbs. We brought in teachers. We had teachers in our midst, and we even had representatives of persons with special needs. So I think it was a very comprehensive group.
Okay, thank you very much.
We did a lot of consultations. We brought in traditional rulers at the beginning of at the drafting level.
Yes, please carry on.
We had a full reflection of all the stakeholders in the education sector. It was even those in the non-formal education sector were brought in during the development of this policy, along with our partners, UNICEF and UNESCO. They were involved in the development of the policy.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Effie. I see Rosette Nyanyanzi has got her hand up. You can unmute yourself and speak, followed by Ujam Clary. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Effie, for that presentation. I only have 2 questions to ask. You talked about providing the basic needs for the girls. I wanted to know, is that sustainable? How do we plan to? Because you also said that all these initiatives are being led by UNICEF. Is this something that the government can take on? Then the other thing is about the work of the role models. And you said that they see girls within the community and then they mentor. How do we get the results or the impact of that intervention? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Rose, for the question. First of all, you're talking about sustainability of our identification and enrollment program. Is that what you're asking about?
I talked about providing the basic needs to the girls that have returned. You talked about re-enrollment drives where you get girls and then girls are provided with the basic needs. And I was wondering, how long can we do this? Is it sustainable? What is the commitment from the government other than the support from UNICEF? Thank you.
Thank you very much. This program was not a UNICEF program, first of all. It was an FME initiative, Federal Ministry of Education initiative. So what we did was to ensure that these girls are enrolled in school. And after that, we appealed to public-spirited individuals, philanthropists within the community to please continue to take on some of these girls and support from these public-spirited individuals or philanthropists. There were also NGOs managed by women that were willing to take them on. So we involved non-governmental organizations, we involved philanthropists, we involved church girls by sponsoring or providing for some of their needs while in school. Then you asked the second question. What was the second question?
Yeah,
Rosette, please, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear. The second question was about the mentorship by the role models, and they do this within the communities where they work. I wanted to know, how do we
The
measure the
HILWA.
impact? Yes, how do we measure the impact?
Well, what we did with HILWA was that these are women of substance, mainly women whose children have finished school, and they absorbed them, they adopted them as their own children. Some of them were taken over to live with them. That way, they took full responsibility of training the girls and mentoring them, while they are living with them. And we had a lot of success stories because I think it was Katsina State, where we had a former commissioner and some other people in Katsina. I think I can't remember her name, but I know her very well, and she's always up and doing when it has to do with. She took it up and encouraged her friends to adopt children in the community that needed help. This initiative proved very effective because a lot of those girls graduated from secondary school and are even making their way to university as we speak. It may not be a perfect thing, but we had all to show for our effort. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we got your full response. Thank you, Dr. Effie. I will move on now to the first person to put up their hand. It's Clarice Ujam, followed by Mabwa. Thank you so much. You can unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Clarice Ujam. I work with Federal Ministry of Education in Nigeria. I want to commend all the presentations, and I also want to add to what Dr. Ife presented. The programs that we have for female or gender, with particular focus on the female gender, is very, very sustainable. She has mentioned some of the programs. And I also want to add that as a result of the research carried out on the girls' education, particularly in the northern part of Nigeria, the result of it made the government of Nigeria, especially Federal Ministry of Education, to include in their roadmap for the education sector in Nigeria that covers from 2024 to 2027. A pillar is just on girls' education. That goes to show, emphasize the need, the focus of the Federal Ministry of Education. A pillar, a full pillar is just on girls' education. So with that, we have a lineup of activities in addition to the ones that she has made. And the organizations, the parastatals, agencies that are working on girls' education have also been identified, and the programs, the activities are broken down. In no long time, probably when you have another meeting, she will tell you specifically the programs lined up quarterly and with timeline. And just like she said, there are so many organizations working to ensure that the female gender is taken care of, especially their education. We have what we call the interministerial partnership. We are a Federal Ministry of Education. We have the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs that are actually taking care of the girls and ensuring that the mentors that she mentioned are also very focused and very committed in helping, mentoring the girls. And there is this other psychosocial method that are being employed to make sure that, because of some of the trauma they went through, we're also working with Federal Ministry of Health. They also have that department where they take care of girls that have gone through some trauma as a result of maybe insecurity or crisis here and there. So with this, we also work, like she mentioned, the non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, religious organizations, especially religious organizations are also helping out. I just want to add that with all these hands on deck, there is sure sustainability method to make sure that it's not just UNICEF doing it, it's not just UNESCO doing it, but the government of Nigeria is directly involved in ensuring that the girls are taken care of. Girls' education is a pillar in our roadmap. I just wanted to add this to what she has said. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Miss.
Please, I think it is important for me to state here that girls' education is the third pillar on the roadmap. It shows the level of, seriousness. It shows the importance that the minister, the ministry attaches to get.
Thank you, Dr. Effie. Please carry on, Maba. Mr. Maba, please carry on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mercy. Mine is just trying to learn a bit more on the presentation by Dr. Eba and clarification by Ojam. Kalar. Mine is actually trying to learn a bit more on project phase 1.3, talking about kite transfer. Remember, in South Sudan, we are also having the same intervention on a kite transfer, and ours is conditional. Is conditional that it must be a girl within schools from primary 5 to 8 and senior 1 to 4. But in this presentation, you have a presentation on kite transfer that's unconditional. So mine is trying to know a bit more from Ujam and Eva, what does it mean by transferring kite unconditional in Nigeria? What do we learn about it?
Thank you very much, Mabo. What we mean by conditional cash transfer is that some
unconditional
support, conditional, some support is given to female teachers, to women that are willing to go to the teaching profession and that are willing to teach in the rural communities. Can you hear me, please, Mabo?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Yeah, go on.
Okay, because you find out that in Nigeria, a lot of people want to remain in the urban areas, Nobody wants to go to the rural areas where you find most of these disadvantaged girls living. So what do? We realize that there must be some incentive, something that will encourage the girls or the teachers to remain in areas where others do not want to go to. The truth is that once a person graduates from the university as a teacher, he no longer finds himself suitable or comfortable to remain in the rural setting. And that is why you find out that in the rural communities, there are no teachers to teach the children. So the conditional cash transfer is given only to those who are willing to remain in the rural communities to teach, and to females only. Thank you.
Yeah, he also asks of unconditional. He said conditional, but unconditional. Did I get you right, please?
Yes. I'm asking in fact about unconditional kite transfer.
Please say it again.
Yeah, I got you. You're right. Yeah, I'm asking about unconditional kite transfer. Yeah.
Okay.
Unconditional cash transfer is some money, some resources given to mothers to support them to encourage their children to go to school. There is no condition attached to this.
All right. There is also this
Can you hear
unconditional
me?
one that to encourage girls, to encourage more girls to go into the teacher training institute to become teachers. So they are given some kind of cash incentive to go study education in a teacher training institutions. So that is classified as unconditional. So long as you agree and you're qualified and you're into teacher training institutions, you will be getting some cash incentive just to make sure that the female gender, girls, women, we have more of them as teachers. And when they are out, they are sent to the rural areas to be teachers and to be also mentors to the girls in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions and responses. Thank you for the engagement. We will now move on to Sarafino, Mr. Sarafino, then Miss Phyllis. Thank you.
Okay, this is Sarafino from South Sudan. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Please
Yes,
carry
please.
on.
Yeah, I have still concern on cash transfer because I'm hearing the cash transfer is given to teachers. What about the girl? Because for the case of South Sudan, the cash transfer are given to the student, the girls, to make them to remain in school. What about in Nigeria? Yes, that is my point.
In Nigeria, we give cash transfer to the mothers in particular, because we know that mothers are the ones responsible for the children, for the girls. So we make sure that mothers have this cash, some form of an incentive to enable them sometimes trade with and generate revenue to sustain their children, their girl children in school, to students depending on their levels. But most cases in Nigeria, cash transfers are given to mothers and enable them support their children's education.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Effie. Does that answer you, Sarafino?
Yes, it answers me. So I'm saying it is so unique because ours is given instead to the girl.
No.
Thank you.
To the girl and not to the actual school for the school fees.
It's given to the girls to buy, maybe to pay some of her needs, maybe part, maybe other thing. That's given directly to the girls, not to the parents.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. I guess we could also look into what those differences actually mean. There should be studies that would also give us evidence of what happens when I think we actually did look at one study. I'll have to go back and look, I think at session 3 or 4, where we looked at, we read an article which showed the differences between giving the cash transfers to the learners themselves and giving the cash transfers directly to the school and sometimes to the parents. Thank you, Sarafino. Miss Phyllis, you had your hand up. Would you like to still say something?
Yes, please.
Please.
Thank you for that. Very insightful. Sorry. Thank you for the insightful presentation from Nigeria. And also on the cash transfer, I would like also to know whether maybe they observed any contravening outcomes, like where it would also encourage others to go that way. Because like when we give the cash transfers to the families, the girls, the caregivers, or we would observe that like it will be a motivation for others, because you know, these material things, sometimes they can be interpreted by communities. Then in addition, another concern I wanted to just find out is that for the reentry, for the effectiveness of the reentry program or intervention, did you have an intervention that would probably take care of the children as the mothers go back to school? What was there any, apart from the probably the cash transfers, any like arrangement to have maybe homes or safe spaces where the children could be left as the mothers go for their school? So just that. I hope I'm clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Phyllis. I want to tell you something, please. In Nigeria here, most of our basic schools have ECCDE centers. So these ECCDE centers take care of the baby of the adolescent girls or the adolescent mothers, so that they can move there during break of their children and go back to their classes. It is also in Nigeria now, every child must have that year post CCD before being enrolled into school. So now from age 0 to age 1 or 2, we expect that the adolescent CCD. And where that is not tenable, we expect that the mothers should also support their children. And that is why there's a lot of sensitization to be done for mothers to understand the import of allowing, of supporting their children, their girl children, to go back to school. In the previous session, we talked about the cost and the benefit of educating a girl child. If mothers are sensitized adequately to know that if my child goes to school, it will be better for me and the entire family tomorrow. Phyllis, I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes, you are.
Phyllis,
Although
please,
you are breaking.
Can you
are
hear?
breaking a little bit.
Okay, you didn't get me fully.
I think I have gotten the answer that you have ECDs that take care of the children from age 2. But earlier on, you have the mothers of the students, the learners. If that is what I got.
Sensitized.
Yeah, and the
to be sensitized in view of the cost and the benefits of educating the girl child.
Yes, thank you. But then would I also like to know, can I also know, if I'm allowed, if
yes, please,
how you handle the period before delivery, yeah? Like do the mothers, the adolescent mothers stay in school to the end of their term till they deliver, or you give them an off before they get to their due dates? Then how long does it take to come back to school? Maybe I didn't hear it because we were breaking during the presentation. And also, suppose it happens that the learner is maybe sitting their final exam. What happens? Do you have a program to probably take care of their their needs if they are candidates, or are they required to just sit their exam even if they were in their labor pains, things like that? Could I please just get how you do it in your country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Phyllis. I think that is very important. That speaks to our national guidelines to facilitate the re-entry of girls into school, pregnant mothers and married girls into school. Now, we leave it open. We allow the girls, if you can cope, if the girl can cope to go through school, we allow them. But once you realize that you cannot cope, because we have a nursing care in almost all our schools, and we have the guidance counselors in almost all our schools, where the child cannot cope, we ask that the school will give the child a release paper, a release document, telling the child to please go back, give birth, and after you have given birth for 6 months, the time limit is 6 months. We now tell you you can come back to the school. But the problem is, if the child is willing to brave it and return to that same school. If the girl is not willing to brave it, we have the option of going to any other school. Documents will be forwarded to that other school, telling them that this was the class where she was, and the test be given to her, because in the process, a test should be given to her to know if she can cope with the new class or she needs to continue with the previous class where she was. That is what we do. Then we also have this I forgot it. We give them 6 months to stay and nurse their baby. We believe that after 6 months, the mother should have become her mother or enrolled into a daycare, these ETC schools or centers. So that is what we do here in Nigeria. This document is still going through the final approval by the National Council on Education. For now, it has gone through the first and the second stages of acceptance. It has been reviewed by almost all stakeholders, and we are sending it for the final approval at the National Council on Education. So that is what we do in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Effie. Thank you so much for all your clarifications and for sharing, and also to Ms. Clarice for chipping in there and helping us and the participants as well. Some of the things that we know, especially like in Southern Africa, when it comes to policies, for example, we have evidence from Zimbabwe, for example, where the policies for re-entry for girls are actually in place. They've been facilitated, but evidence on the ground shows that the shaming and the humiliating of girls because of social norms who are pregnant means that even though they are allowed to go to school, they may end up not going to school until they actually
going back.
Yes, and here in South Africa as well, girls can go to school if they want to, even while they are pregnant. So we see that depending on the context of where they are exactly positioned, sometimes it's not the policy, it's the social norms that may actually inhibit them from going. So the evidence is a bit different from place to place. So I want to move on a little bit. This is a very vibrant discussion, and I can see that there's a lot of interest on country on country examples. And if we had more time, we would be able to ask other countries to also present the programs that they are doing and have our participants engage. I see that some of the participants were writing directly to Justine in the comment box. One of the comments says, measuring gender-based violence is somewhat an emerging phenomenon for education data systems. In other words, the specific data variables and indicators that are comparable and relevant are new, and more needs to be done to strengthen the capacity at local level, given the sensitivity of these kind of indicators, which is a comment that Justine also agreed with, and she went on to share a UNESCO report there. There's a link. If you check in the chat box, there's a link to a report from 2 large-scale international surveys, the Global School-Based Student Health Survey and the Health Behavior in School-Aged Children, HBSC, yes. And then, yes, there's another comment, measuring this school-based gender-based violence is really a demanding task that requires some degree of collaboration between frontline actors and stakeholders. It's something that also Justine agreed with and said there is not yet a clear standardized indicator for comparative purposes, and a lot more work needs to be done. Some comments were going also to Dr. Effie, and I see Delphine from UNESCO has also shared some documents, some more school violence that you can also be able to look at. Yes. So we are going to, before I call on our next speaker, I just want to indicate that we have another survey that we need we need our participants to undertake. We are going to do it as part of the session. So we are going to have 10 minutes where our participants can do a survey. Don't worry about it. It's a multiple choice survey, so the answers are there. You have 10 minutes to complete it, and we need it to compile a report that we are doing. So we'll require you to do this before you exit the class. But for now, I will hand over to Marianne. I think her hand is up. She needs to say something. You can carry on, Marianne.
No, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to say that Justine wanted to share a resource. If we could just give her a couple seconds to mention the resource that she's been trying to share. And if you want, I can also then share the link for that survey, Mercy, in the chat box whenever you're ready for me to share it.
Yes, you can do that. And also after Justine, you can go ahead and invite Quinton to speak as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. And it's been really interesting to see the discussion both in the chat and in person. I think the examples from Nigeria are really exciting. We'd love to see them on the platform, so we'll be following up with you. I just wanted to say one other thing that we've found to be quite useful, particularly when you're talking about strategic alliances, and is power mapping. And I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the idea of power mapping is basically to see who holds the power and who can help you influence action on different topics, whether that means power, toward or power, how do we say it, for or against. So I can put a link in the chat on this, but essentially, as part of the work we're doing through the platform, we're also undertaking a power mapping exercise in a number of countries to understand, who can help you influence your advocacy outcomes, whether it be on girls' return to school, whether in the context of parenting, whether it be on gender responsive education sector plans, just thinking about who are the types of stakeholders that you need to engage. I think it's an important aspect of any advocacy strategy. So just wanted to share that, and I can put a link to one resource on power mapping that might be interesting for participants. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Justin. While I wait for Marianne, thank you so much. I think that's a very, very important tool that you are referring to. I know sometimes we speak of power to, power over, but it would be really interesting, I mean, as a tool to understand different country contexts as to how you can identify who has power to move maybe even certain policies, if I'm getting you correctly, and who has power, who you can partner with to move certain, not just policies, but also even advocacy and actions on the ground. I think I'll leave Marianne to continue for now.
Thank you so much, Mercy. And thank you, Justine, for that addition. Power mapping is a really great tool. I think it will be helpful for participants too. We're merging into module 2 of this short accelerated course, and we're looking at participants creating individual action plans in which they'll have to identify the stakeholders that they'll need to consult or work with in their contexts or in their departments to complete a few actions to prioritize gender. Let me see if we have, okay, so the link has been shared in the chat box for the survey. It's actually a short, friendly quiz. Maybe I could just share my screen for 10 seconds to show you what it looks like to encourage people to take it. So in the chat box, you can see my screen as well. We've just posted this link here. This is actually a sort of a self-assessment for you. And also, it could work as a formative assessment and a summative assessment, because summative, we're summarizing the learning from the last couple of weeks, but it's also a formative assessment because it'll inform and form the next steps that we do with you, the next workshops that we end up holding next year. And it's also a self-assessment because once you take it, we'll show the answers, we'll show people's responses and go over that in a few minutes. So it'll only take you about 5 minutes. Check your understanding by clicking on the answers here. So for example, question 1 is, what is sex? And you can choose between 3 possible answers. Okay, so it's not like you have to write a long one. You can just check the answer that you think is the right one. There's only a couple of questions here. Please do take it. It's going to be great for you to see and for us to see what you learned in these couple of weeks. Let me stop sharing my screen. I want to see if Quentin is here for closing remarks. Quentin, are you able to hear us?
Sorry, Marianne, did you ask when I was here? Sorry, my sound is low, so I couldn't. Sorry.
Okay, great. I just wanted to let you know that well, we've been following the plan a little differently. I think we want to give you the chance to give some remarks to participants as they start to perhaps wind up the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Marianne. And I tend to be confused between French and English, so I'll speak English these days. All right. No, I just wanted to thank everybody. I mean, I realize this has been quite an investment in time for all of you, with 6 sessions on a short period of time. And I just wanted to let you know that, I mean, IGBA and of course KICS 19 are really committed to this. When I spoke, it was, I think, the last session. I don't know if it was exactly the same group of people. I mentioned a few things in terms of follow-up that I wanted to repeat today. First, if you were there 2 days back, you know that we are going to have what we call an Africa Teachers Report. That will be the first Africa Teachers Report. That's under IGBA. It's not exactly KICS, but of course there are benefits for KICS. We are hoping to feature interesting experiences in countries in that report. The report will be launched on January 31st, so it's in about 8-9 weeks at an event in Brussels. And if you have interesting experiences in your country that you can document, I would love for you to send me that information. You can go through Marianne so that we can reflect on great stuff that is going on in many countries. And that can give also ideas for the other countries, right? That's one. Two, separately from the Africa report, we are going to do reports on a number of other countries. And my guess is that we will be able to cover at least a half dozen. If in your ministry there is an interest in us working on something for your country, to try to look at the benefits from investing in girls' education, the benefits for reducing gender inequality, and especially what can work, we are happy to do that. The third thing that I wanted to mention, and I also mentioned it 2 days back, but I want you to again be aware of it. We, IGBA, together with UNICEF, together with FAWE, and that is the Forum for African Women Educationalists, we launched a gender responsive pedagogy course at the conference that FAWE had about a few weeks ago. They do that every 3 years, that conference. That course is available in a standard format. Everybody can take it on the web. It's on IGBA's e-learning platform. If you need the information, we can give it to you. I want to let you know that we are happy to adapt that course. It's a self-paced e-learning course to your country. That means that if there is a need to add a few elements, for example, on what your country is doing, or if there is a need to provide some country context before we go into the various concepts on gender responsive pedagogy, we are happy to do that. And the last thing I wanted to mention, again, related to follow-up, is that many of you, I think, are part of the KICS network, right? We are from Africa, KICS 19. You know that in the new phase of KICS that has just started, we have 2 new mechanisms that can be used to support your work. One is called the country support mechanism, and the other one is called the small grants. In both cases, whether IGBA does it, or whether UNICEF SRO does it, or whether the African Union IPED does it, we are happy to support you in work that you might do on girls' education and gender inequality through those mechanisms. That is for KICS Africa 19. We also actually got some funding from Japan, and that covers some English-speaking countries to do work on gender. And so that's another way that we can potentially help you. I mean, these are not large sums of money, but they can help you think through the type of interventions that you might want to implement. So I insisted on those various potential follow-ups. I know that the committee of practice will continue with the project that you can do, the work plan, I think, or I don't know how you call it. Marianne will correct me. And we might have then after that other ways to interact. So I really hope this committee of practice continues. I thank you for participating in it. And I think we will have ways to work together and to support you, whether through IGBA or through the KICS Africa 19, any one of the 3 partners. So please don't hesitate to let us know what you need. If we can't help, we won't, but if we can help, we will. And if you have interesting experience to share, please do share them so that we can reflect on this and share this at a much broader level in Africa as a whole. So Marianne, thank you. Thank you again to all. And we hope to continue this next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Quentin. I want to pass over to Mercy again. Thank you, Quentin, for your support. And Mercy, back over to you for the quiz, for follow-ups. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think I forgot to show my face today so the participants can see me and see that we are still happy, we are still here, we are together, we are learning. Thank you so much, Quentin, for your comments, and thank you for your presentation. It also sparked a lot of engagement. Thank you so much for coming in and taking time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us and to speak to the participants as well. Yes. Okay. So going back, yes, nice seeing you, Dr. Effie. Now I can put a face to the name. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mercy. Please, there is something there's a burning problem on my mind, and I think I should share it in this forum.
Okay,
and
please
that
go
is
on.
when we went for a FAWE program. That's this Forum for African Women Educationalists in some states in Nigeria here. We found out that there is this thing they call money bride. I don't know if it is common in other places, that whenever a family has financial issues, they will now use the girl child, a female child, and give as a surety or a guarantee to get money. I don't know if you have heard that. I've never heard that before. So it's a real burning issue for me. How do we go about that?
Yes, yes. Thank you, Dr. Effie. What I can say, as someone who studies development, it's a multi it's a what can we call it? It's interdisciplinary. So sometimes I tend to study history as well. So if we look at our history, you will find that these things are actually not new. It's just that as we have been moving away from certain systems, right? Moving to democracy, things have changed. Even if you look at European history, remember that the marrying of people, whether it's a countess, it's a prince, it's a whatever, it was really driven by economic, by the economic, what can I call them? There's an economic base to it. Who goes to marry into what family? The only thing is that because we have moved to independence, we've moved to what we think is already enlightenment and civilization. We have done away with some of these practices. But what would be interesting is to find out why they are starting to come back. But from what you are saying, it seems like it's still pointing to the number one structural issue that we've been talking about on the continent, that of poverty, but even where poverty happens, remember, it also intersects with the social norms, because just because you are poor or just because you have a problem, why would your first instinct be to give away, for
a female
example, child, right? So it also speaks to our social norms and the things that we believe. That's why you'll see that in the first section, we try to speak about the idioms that we use, right? The music that we listen to, the films that would what are the messages that are being sent? So if we keep objectifying girls and objectifying women, you will find that it becomes a problem to move away, from some of these harmful practices.
Yes.
But it's also something that I'm thinking about, the fact that Quinton had asked. Maybe this is too short notice, but it would be good if someone could also do a study and highlight, these things that are happening so that they can come out in the open. If NGOs or CBOs or other international organizations get to know, people can advocate against some of these practices. But I'm happy to also, I'm happy to hear maybe from people who have specific experience or evidence from this particular practice. Thank you, Dr. Effie. Yeah, we will continue engaging even as we are moving.
Thank you very much, Mercy.
Yes. So to our participants, before I give you, what time is it now? Yeah. I was going to just go and give you, may I please have the slides, Gabriel? Thank you. I was just going to give you a small overview, a very short overview of our discussion today, just to see if you may still have further questions. So instead of doing this as an exercise, yes, you can carry on. Yes. Let's see, there is a list. Can we go to the end where I listed the strategies? Yes. So yes, that one. Yes, strategies. So before I give you your 10 minutes to complete the survey, I just wanted to sort of bring this conversation and this topic for today, you know, to sort of ground it by saying, I know a lot of presentations have been made, a lot of things have been shared. So sometimes you may feel like there's a lot of information that's just going around and you can't get a grasp of where we are coming from and where we are going. So in terms of strategies, right, we can speak of legal and policy frameworks and access to education as a strategy, teacher training and gender sensitization. We can speak of curriculum development, community engagement, as well as addressing gender-based violence. So these are strategies that ideally, I have more notes that I'll put for you in the resource package if you want to read like in full when we say legal and policy frameworks and all of these things, what do we actually mean? But we are talking about strategies that would help us to come up with very strong gender responsive and gender transformative education in Sub-Saharan Africa. Please take me to the stakeholders as well. Yes, another, yes. So stakeholders, I think this has already been said over and over by different speakers, and over the past few weeks, we are speaking of government ministries, teachers and educators, learners themselves, parents, communities, community leaders. We have non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, also international organizations. Even our presenter from Nigeria was telling us that they do partner with UNICEF, they do partner with UNESCO, and also academic and research institutions. I think if we are to carry on, especially with the community of practice, it will be interesting also to invite young people themselves to come and speak about what they see as their own issues, because they are the important stakeholders, so that we don't have these conversations without them. Can we move to the alliances? Thank you very much, Gabriel. So some of the alliances could mean women and youth organizations. It could mean religious and traditional leaders. We are also speaking maybe of local education initiatives. For example, in South Africa, we've got an initiative called Equal Education. So it's more of a civil society organization. And what it does is that it advocates for inclusive policies with the government. They raise awareness also among the publics and different communities. So it would be interesting to hear from our participants from different countries, like in your country, what would be an example which equals that of one in South Africa, the Equal Education Initiative. And we've got the global education initiatives, which we already know. And part of what we have now, I think I can say mostly in the past decade, we have seen the rise of public-private partnerships. And this is also, they have been championed as part of sustainable development. So these partnerships have their advantages, they have their disadvantages. But it would also be interesting to, especially if we use the tool that Justin gave us a link to, the one on mapping power, to see out of all these that we are the different organizations and stakeholders that we are listing, like in your country, who would you say has the influence of being heard if they were to start, you know, talking about a new initiative for girls, a new initiative for boys? How would they go about it? So in the interest of time, unless there's another burning question, what I would like to do now is to give our participants 10 minutes to complete and submit the questions that we are asking. And then we'll come back to the open forum to engage and to say our final goodbyes, and to also talk about the I don't know whether we can call it an assignment that came that Marianne has been talking about, I think, this entire week, the one the community of that forms part of the community of practice that our participants are going to be working on, the plans, you know, the plan to how you tackle a specific intervention in your capacity at whatever level you find yourself. So if there is no one with any comment that wants to speak, I could start counting the 10 minutes from now. On my side, it's 13 minutes after the hour, whatever hour we are on, which means that we can come back to the room at 23 minutes past. Is this okay? Does anyone have anything to say? A question, maybe clarity, observation? Is this okay? Can I hear from someone?
Yes, Mercy, can I come in? Can I come in, please? Especially on the alliance part, I just would like to emphasize on the importance of having the legal institutions,
Yes.
especially the courts and the police, because
yes,
when we talk about especially school-related gender-based violence, and you know, the data reporting stays at the community level, because there is no linkage between the police, the court, and the community, and the awareness level, especially those law enforcing institutions have on the gender-based violence, you will be surprised, you know, the way that they see the extent of violence. And if a girl is harassed in the school and wants to report to the nearest station or the police station, the way these girls or even the parents are approached by the police station is a bit challenging in many of the contexts in Africa. So these are something that I think we need to get involved when it comes to addressing the issue of school-related gender-based violence, and beyond the community awareness, because sometimes it's a shame for the parents even to report this kind of violences. And these girls, sometimes they get, you know, raped, they get sexually harassed by their uncles, by the very close family members, and so on. So it's a taboo for the community to bring this to the police, and the level of initiation also from the police to take actions when this kind of reports come to them is a bit loosed. So I think it's important also to emphasize on the legal institutions, especially from the aspect of addressing gender-based violence.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a very important point. And I know that here in South Africa, what has been done also is that the police themselves and people in the law enforcement, and even, you know, the judges and other people and lawyers, they have also been getting gender equality, gender sensitive training, because we found that one of the reasons why we don't actually have reliable statistics is because people are either afraid to go, or when they go, they face further harassment. So that also becomes an issue. So that's a very important point. Thank you very much. Have our participants started their survey? Can anyone confirm?
Mercy, we have 6 responses so far, and I think more are coming in by the minute.
Okay, all right.
It's quite interesting. I'm looking at the results now, and I think it'd be really interesting if we can take 5 minutes to show the responses so that people can self-assess their own their own answers too, whenever we're ready to do that, just to see
Yes.
that there are some differences and then some similarities, you know? It's really interesting.
Sorry, please, how can I have access to the survey?
In the chat box, Dr. Effie,
It's in
see
the
the chat
chat,
box.
Okay, thank
We
you.
now have 7 responses. Oh, I see more people are responding. So if you can take a couple minutes, check the chat box. I'm enjoying seeing your responses.
Oh, okay. Do I have access to these responses? I was also I know Miss N is probably busy with her survey, but I also wanted us to speak about the issue of indicators to see whether all her questions have been answered or she wants to engage with some of our guest speakers or even with us after we are done with the session or even during the session. Yeah. Where can I get the responses, Miriam?
Mercy, I think this form is your form. You shared it with me. So if you can, let me share it again with you. Let me find a way to send it. Also, Miss Anne Gachoya is here in the room.
I have it.
Maybe she didn't hear you. So
I have it. Thanks, Miriam.
Okay.
Yes, we have 8 now. Yeah, very interesting indeed. We are still at 8 responses.
Also, please.
Result.
Mercy, if you'd like, I can share my screen whenever you're ready to go over the quiz responses. We have 9 people who have responded now, and whenever you'd like, I don't mind sharing my screen and maybe we can go through them.
Thanks, Marianne. I just want to give others a few more, just a little bit more time because I see the responses are still coming in. We just went from 9 to 11. And let me see how many participants we currently have online. Besides the speakers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, okay. I think we currently have 11 participants logged in, and we have 11 responses as well. Unless there's an indication, is there someone who's still working on their answers who needs a few seconds? Or are you all done?
Yeah.
Dear lovely participants, are we done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay.
Now we have 12.
Oh, okay, that's good. Let me just see, there's a comment coming in. I have the impression that gender is one of the complex issues. Oh, okay, hence the approach to gender-based issues may require complex strategies to find optimum solutions. Okay. That's Mr. Sikelekele. We have 12. I had counted 11, so 11 people. I think about now is a good time to yeah.
Yeah, because then people can see before they leave.
Yes,
I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, thank you, Marianne. I hope that you can still submit if you are busy. It's still okay. Yes. Oh, it now says 13 responses.
Yeah, 13. Great. They're coming in.
Yeah.
So these are the countries that have responded.
Yeah. Eswatini 1, Ethiopia 1, the Gambia 1, Kenya 2, Lesotho. Is it Kenya or Kenya? I always never know. It's 4 from Lesotho. Malawi, we have 1 today. I noticed that I was looking at our pre-workshop survey, and we had three. How many people? Yes, we had 3 people who took the survey. The highest for the pre-survey was 3 in Malawi and 3 in Uganda and 2 in Kenya, and the rest, it was 1 Gambia, 1 South Sudan, and 1 Zimbabwe. So today Malawi is one and Uganda 2. Okay, thank you. Yeah, we can go down. Yeah. So 84.6% are government officials, and then 7.7% is government experts, and the little bit that's remaining is civil society representatives. Okay. What's reaction number 1, by the way? That's the
I
most.
think that's the, let me see, reaction 1, sorry. Reaction 1 is the smiley face, and then 2 is the thinking face.
And then there's the thinking face. Okay. So the smiley face has got the most responses, and the thinking face has got the remaining responses. Yes, actually it was taken by 14 people. Yes, and what is sex? 100% of the people said the biological difference between boys and men and girls and women. Yes. And what is gender? A term which refers to the socially constructed differences. 92.3% of our participants picked that one. And how many? I'm not sure how many.
1%.
But that's 1%. 1% said the biological difference between boys and girls, which is incorrect, because the first one is the correct answer. And I hope that since this is a learning exercise, we'll continue to discuss and to talk about this and to read until we all understand. Yes.
And I hope that they're still here in the meeting to hear that.
Yes, we've now got 18 people online. We had 19 before. So maybe I don't know whether I should really go through all the answers, because I don't want to lose our participants before they hear next steps. So what is a function of sex? 92.3% said breastfeeding, and 1% said managing, which is normally associated with gender, even though that's incorrect, but it's also managing is associated with gender, not sex. Yes, we can go down. What is a function of gender? Growing a beard, voice breaking, or boxing? And most of our participants understood that boxing is normally is a gendered sport. It's normally associated with gender, and growing a beard is associated with sex, right? Like your biology, how you are born. We had a number, maybe 2 or 3 people said growing a beard. And then carrying on, I hope that this discussion continues to serve as an explainer and to illuminate as well which one is a systemic barrier. Policies that result in some people receiving unequal access or being excluded. So is it policies, is it practices, is it procedures, or is it all of the above? And most people said all of the above, which is actually correct. When in our slides, if you go, you will see that this was actually one sentence which said policies, practices, and procedures that result in some people receiving unequal access or being excluded. I know also that sometimes when you are taking these tests and you have to think on the spot, you may even miss things that you actually understand when you are given more time. Going to the next one. The next one, intersectionality refers to cross-cutting systems of oppression that deepen inequality. That's the first one. Forms of oppression which structure society, forms of oppression which structure society intersect to shape each other and to shape experience. And C, for example, when gender hierarchies shape the nature of racial discrimination, and vice versa. So it's all of the above, and the majority understood that it's all of the above. And the good thing about this is that you have this in the slides, in the resource, in the resource pack. Yes. So this was, I think, session 2. Yes.
Oh, what is the answer? All of the above?
Yes, it's all of the above. If you go on the slides that I used, you see there is a diagram with circles that are intersecting each other.
Yes,
all of
yes,
these
yes.
statements, yes, all of these statements were next to were in the diagram. Yes.
It's fine.
Yes.
I'm marking myself. I got it right.
And I can still share some more readings on intersectionality, but you'll find that most readings will speak more to the theory, but what we really want is the practicality of understanding, right? That I think what makes more sense for people to understand is if we say, for example, a girl or a boy who is Black, who is an immigrant, who is of a certain ethnicity, who is, so you and from a certain socio-economic background. So when all of these things intersect, right? But there's also the other thing that people tend to do with intersectionality is they make it an identity-based theory, but really it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to look at also the intersecting systems and structures, right? Or in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of even the employment sector, who has access to what and what stops you from having the same access. Like, I don't know in other countries, but here we speak of, we know that the elite have access to tenders, right? To government tenders. Like, who has access to a government tender? Who is able to go and tender even to do the gender education? So, I think I can say that and move on to the next question. Gender responsive education refers to policies and actions informed by an awareness of gender norms and roles and relations as they impact education, and taking measures to actively reduce those effects that pose challenges to gender equality in education. And C says privileging girls over boys in education. So I see no one. Some people chose A, which is correct. Some people chose B, which is also correct. I'm happy to see no one chose C, which is not correct, which makes our answer A and B. And you see that the majority chose A and B. Yes. So if you chose either one, you are still correct, but this is also, you have to see that these two are linked as well. If you go to the slides, you also see that it was actually one sentence. Yes. Thank you. Going up, gender responsive education sector planning, GRESP, which we did last Tuesday. Planning is based on an understanding of the specific education experiences of boys and girls, and planning also which takes into account different socioeconomic groups, geographic location of learners, and planning which takes into account ability and other factors for programs to address their specific needs. All of the above is the correct answer. Yes, I see most people chose the first one. It's correct. Others chose the second one and the third one. So all of them were correct. So to get the most marks, you would have to choose everything. I hope you are happy so far with the answers you are giving, and that you are gentle with yourself and you understand that learning is a lifelong thing, right? And we've been doing this at quite a high speed while we are also doing work, children crying in the backgrounds. I'm very, very happy, and I think participants' engagement has been very, very encouraging. Sarafino, you would like to say something, or your hand is up from the last session?
I want to say something.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. What are you going to do with some of our colleagues? They were there, but because of internet there, they drop out and they have not done the exercise, like Mabor.
You will see that Miss Marianne has been sharing from, I think, around session 2 or even the first one, to say that the reason why we have the resource pack and the videos is that our colleagues who dropped off for various reasons can go and listen and take the surveys and submit them. So if they do that, they will still get the certificate of attendance. And they are also free to email us if they are facing any troubles and to ask if they have any questions, and we'll direct them to all the materials that they need.
Okay, thank you so much.
Is that okay? Yes,
yeah,
yes.
okay. Thank you.
So, yes, so we are not leaving anyone behind. Both boys and girls are welcome. Yes. Moving on to the next one. Thank you so much for asking that. I think it's going to give clarity. Yes, what would you like us to focus on? Yeah, 13 responses are a lot. I'll try to maybe, should I read everything or just a few? Framework for handling programming for pregnancies and re-entry, call for resources for countries to tackle gender-related challenges, request for a side event during CSW for gender in and through education. Someone please remind me quickly, what's CSW again? Or maybe you can just put it in the chat box. Yes. So I think some of our colleagues here, or between participants and guest speakers, they do have the frameworks for handling pregnancies and re-entry, as we saw from the different countries that have been sharing or on the platform live and also in the chat box. Yeah, we'll find a way to make sure that we collect this and share, but the best way we've managed to do that at the moment is to put everything in the resource folder. How to review curriculum and teaching and learning materials to be gender responsive. Yes, I saw that some of the participants were asking, even the Nigerian Dr. Ifif, our presenter from Nigeria, what sort of measures they put in place, or what systems and practices they involved to review their curriculum. More interventions to take back girl child who went out of school. So it looks like there's sort of a consistency there in terms of re-entry. People want gender strategies. I'm not sure in relation to what specifically. People also want education, gender statistics. Yes, I think it's one of the things we all became aware that it's not, statistics are not as, or rather data is not as available as we would like it to be, due to I think the cost in some cases of collecting data and making it available. Strategies to prioritize gender at the school level. Okay, school-related gender-based violence, great, learned a lot. The influence of gender inequality from families that end up in schools, how can this be alleviated? So this is what people want to talk about if we do have another training session. How or what strategies to use to get states to accept, to implement gender programs in their states. So in some countries, we call these provinces as well, different sectors of different, what can we call, different geographic areas of different countries. Gender transformative education system. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, So CSW is the UN Commission of the Status of Women. Yes, yes, I remember. A yearly international conference. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, we can move down. Did this course make a difference? The 14 responses said big difference. So we said, is it a big difference? Is it a small difference? Is it no difference? Is it any other? So we have a whooping 100% saying this course made a difference. Yes. And then the last one, maybe I shouldn't be the one to read this one. Whether or not you would recommend this facilitator to others. So 92.9% said yes, definitely, and 1% said yes, maybe. So that's not bad, right? Considering we were doing this online and yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our participants who are still here. I can see that some of them have had to drop off. Marian, do you want to say anything about the survey?
No, not particularly, just that it's really interesting and encouraging to see the responses, especially this one, that people feel that, you know, despite having to connect virtually, we know that this is not the ideal learning space. It's not. We completely understand that it's much more enriching to meet in person, but with budgetary constraints, you know, it would take so many tens of thousands of dollars to bring all these people here from all these different countries together, even for a simple 2-day training. And now we've had 3 weeks together, actually, and it's not stopping. We're going to have more sessions next year once we hear back from you about your professional action plans. So I think despite that virtual versus in-person engagement, that challenge, still people are saying that they have really learned a lot, which is really wonderful. And I'm so grateful to this community of people that are now committed. It's a small group, it's a committed group. I think it's better to have 20 people that are interested rather than 100 people who are just tuning in, but also doing something else, you know, not really paying attention, not really caring, and not engaging in the question and answer. I just wanted to say that, Mercy, that it's really great to see their responses, and we'll definitely be using those responses to plan.
Yes, thank you so much, Marian. I also just want to extend my thank you and to say to the participants, well done for coming in, for engaging. You know, we were also having trouble. We would also have preferred that this was a one-on-one, you know, where we could speak to each other face to face, have time, you know, like when you're on a tea break, you can walk over and ask whatever it is that you may not understand. But we did the best we could with all the resources we had, and also for you to take your time to come and learn, and for this dedication. You know, I was actually thinking that if I were to leave you with a word, what would I say to you? And I just wanted to say that I know that we've been speaking of key terms, key questions, you know. We keep talking about gender responsive this, gender transformation, but I want you to think of it this way. When we talk about equality, what are we really talking about? I think what we are really talking about is freedom, right? The freedom to be able to exist in the body that you were born in, right? To not be discriminated based on the color of your skin, based on the gender that is socially constructed, based on the sex that you were born with. So we are really talking about freedom. We are really talking about the fact that, you know, as humans, what we've done over the years, you know, we've come up with systems, some of them economic, socio-economic, some of them political, some of them cultural. And all these systems, what they have done is that they have dehumanized others and put others on top and others on the bottom. And what we are learning is that when we put others on the top and we put others on the bottom, and then we start to give people certain resources based on how they look, how they speak, where they live, it becomes a problem for those who have access to the resources and those who don't have. At the end of the day, it affects everyone because no one lives in peace. So if you take anything away from what we have been talking about, we have really been talking about the fact that, as human beings, we have come maybe to our senses to see that there is really no need to discriminate each other based on gender or based on anything, because it becomes a problem. And I speak also from a personal experience, because I myself dropped out of school at the age of 17. I got pregnant, and a lot of things, were done around me. A lot of things were said. I faced so many stumbling blocks, and it's been a very long and hard road for me to get to PhD, but I lived to tell the tale. And so I also speak from experience. The things I speak about, I speak with a deep conviction. It's not just a matter of wanting to share this term and that term. These are real life experiences that actually affect people. So while the road is sometimes hard, but when we have stakeholders, when we have people that are interested, when we have people that champion us, right? Sometimes they give us scholarships, sometimes it's food, sometimes it's that, and different organizations. It can also be a triumphant experience in the end. So I don't mean to lecture or to preach to you, but I just wanted to say, I think for me, that can be my parting shot to you. I will hand over to my colleague Marianne, unless we have maybe a participant who would like, or two even, that would like to also give, to have something to say, something they think that they are walking away from, that's not part of the survey, that something you haven't said as part of the survey.
Hello, merci.
Yes, Mr. Petros.
Oh, thank you so much. The points that you raised are very fascinating. They motivate us to move forward. This is not a question of just helping girls, as we have been saying. It is a question of building a nation. So, as we said, the resource need to be open for everyone who can generate them. So, we need to be committed towards nation building and towards the issue of girls and boys. Thank you so much for your excellent coordinations. Merci, Marianne, and all the others. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Petros. We really appreciate your thanks and also your contributions. You really also made these sessions worthwhile. You were always coming in with your observations and your feedback, and we really appreciate it. Dr. Effie, would you like to say something, or your?
Thank you very much, Mercy or Mariam. I think it's a wonderful experience to have learned from you. I have learned a lot. Even with the survey, I have made some mistakes based on the fact that I
I think Dr. Effie's network is playing up again. Dr. Effie, can you hear us? Would someone else like to speak while we are waiting to get Dr. Effie back? Would one of our participants like to say anything? I was speaking earlier, I don't know if you heard me, Miss Anne Gachoya. I did make a reference to you earlier. I wanted to know whether your questions have been answered, or do you still want us to engage outside of the platform? Okay, maybe she's logged in but not present. Is there anyone else who would like to say something in closing, our participants, before I hand over to Miss Marianne?
Please, did you hear what I said?
Sorry,
Did you hear
Dr.
me?
Effie, you dropped off after one sentence. Please, maybe if you can just summarize what you...
Okay, I said that I am really impressed by this experience, and I have learned, I have made a few mistakes. I have come to understand that there are certain things I never knew. I did not fully know about gender, and I've learned some of those things. So thank you very much for this experience. However, I still want to suggest, even though it has been mentioned in passing, that there is need for person-to-person sessions, because my network in Nigeria, you can tell it has been very epileptic. So please, maybe some other time, some concession should be given to those of us from Nigeria or something. I don't know. Thank you very much.
Dr. Effie, what do you mean by person to person, if I may ask?
Okay, like the last but one speaker said, there is need for us to relate with each other. Maybe during tea breaks, you can sit with somebody and say, please, explain to me what you meant by, transformative education sector plan or something like that. Or you can ask somebody to explain to you what's gender and sex, the differences and all that. So I think it is important for us to have that one-on-one relationship. Thank you.
Okay, I see what you mean. Thank you very much. I think we are going to have to think about what we can do, because we did Zoom breakaway rooms, but maybe we need to also think creatively about how we can have maybe, normally it's that type of situation. It's normally used for for dating, I think, where you can speak to someone for seconds and you move over and you speak to someone else and you move over and you speak to someone else. That may also be a way to get everyone else to speak to everyone else. Thank you, Dr. Effie. If there's no one else.
Thank you, Ma.
Okay, all right. Is there anyone else, participants, with last closing remarks? Mrs. Kelekele. Okay, I will hand over to. Okay,
hello,
yes, yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for this session and the last 6 ones. Although I missed about 2 of them, I will make up as advised. But
yes.
Maybe later I would like to have a one-on-one with you about the curriculum inclusiveness of these gender issues, because as you have mentioned in these sessions, that there are many stakeholders in gender when it comes to, so they come with their own perceptions, how they are dealing with it. Maybe they are, let me take an example. If they are NGOs or other groupings, they are dealing with the gender according to how they want to, or they understand it and in their environment. But sometimes they want to take it into the education system. So when you take it into the education system, there are a number of things which have to be taken into consideration. One of them being the pedagogy. The way they are doing it in their own perspective, there may be no particular pedagogy that is compatible with what we are doing in the education system. So to tailor that into the education system requires other means. That is, we have to select other things and leave out other things because of other constraints such as time. So these are some of the things that we should consider. What do we take as big ideas in gender that we can take into the education system? And that what are the periphery ideas that we may do without, taking into consideration what I've already mentioned, that there are constraints, for example, of time. Thank you very much. If that makes sense. I thank you for the time that you have given me to talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate your comments, and I think Marianne and Tim are also going to be thinking, as Marianne has been saying over and over again, that this was a first, you know, and it's the community of practice is still being put into practice, and this was one of the first modules. So we are taking into consideration all the points that you are raising. I also want to say, if you have any questions that you think are specific for me, you can feel free to email me on the email that I shared on my slides, as well as the mobile. You'll see that the mobile number that I shared is also the same one I'm using on the WhatsApp group where most of us are. If you have a question that you can ask on the WhatsApp group. If you want to inbox me, please feel free, as long as it's about this course and what we were learning, that's fine. Thank you so much. I now hand over to my colleague, Marianne.
I think, Mercy, nothing that I can say can summarize your closing words, especially your story that you shared. And I hope that you've seen the comment from Martha in the chat box. So I just want to thank everybody and thank you, Mercy, for the wonderful experience. I feel like in some ways we're just getting started. But thank you so much, Mercy. And thank you to everyone here. Petros, Anne, Sekalakele, Makube, Gladys, Phyllis, Martha, Pumsale, Dr. Effie, Sarafino, and the others who have dropped off since then. Maybe we can take a group picture before we go?
Yes. Oh.
If we turn our cameras on for a moment, we take a picture.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Martha. Is she still here? Thank you, Ma'am Pumsile.
Okay,
Thanks,
a couple more
everyone.
people. Phyllis, Anne, Makube, Gladys, do you want to turn your cameras on? Martha?
Gabrielle?
Okay. Okay, let's take the picture. 1, 2. Oh, some more people. Okay, now we have Martha. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's a good one. I'll share it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mercy.
Okay.
Thank you, Jerusalem, Gabriel, for your support.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.